The loom clicked rhythmically as Elena worked, her hands moving with the ease that came from years of practice. Each thread that passed through her fingers was more than just yarn. It was a lifeline, a whisper of fate itself. She had always known the loom was special, passed down from her grandmother and from her grandmother before that. But it was only recently that Elena began to understand the depth of its power. Her small home on the outskirts of the village was filled with the warm smell of herbs drying from the ceiling, the crackle of the fire, and the quiet comfort of solitude. But something had changed. The loom was restless, as if it had a mind of its own, as if the threads she wove were growing impatient. Lately, dark lines had started to appear among the vibrant colors. Threads of pure black. They had no place in the patterns she created, and yet they insisted on weaving themselves in. Elena wiped her brow and paused for a moment, staring at the latest tapestry in front of her. It was a commission from the village elder, a piece meant to celebrate a coming-of-age ceremony. It should have been full of life-rich reds, greens, and gold. Instead, she noticed the threads of black creeping through, like veins of poison, corrupting the beauty. She reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed the dark thread. Her pulse quickened, and a chill ran down her spine. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just a mistake in the weaving. This was something deeper, something far more dangerous. "Elena, are you home?" A voice called from outside, breaking her concentration. It was Finn, the young blacksmith from the village, his voice strong and full of warmth. She quickly rose from her loom, pulling the shawl around her shoulders and pushing the disturbing thoughts away from her. "Come in," she called. Finn stepped into the small room, wiping his hands on his apron. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and a smile that always seemed to brighten the space. He had been a good friend for years, ever since they were children playing near the riverbank. "I brought the hinges you needed for the cupboard," he said, holding up a small bundle of metalwork. "They should fit perfectly." "Thank you, Finn. You always know exactly what I need," Elena said, offering him a small smile, though her mind was still on the loom and its dark thread. Finn looked around the room, his eyes falling on the tapestries still hanging from the loom. "It's a beautiful piece. The elder will love it." Elena hesitated, unsure how to explain the darkness that had been creeping into her work. She didn't want to worry him after all. What could he do about it? "Something strange has been happening with my weaving," she finally said, her voice low. "I've noticed threads that don't belong. Dark one." Finn frowned, stepping closer to the loom to inspect it. "What do you mean?" "I'm not sure," she admitted, "but it feels wrong, as if someone or something is interfering with the pattern." Before Finn could respond, there was a knock at the door this time. It wasn't the familiar sound of a friend's self-visit. It was heavier, urgent. "Elena," a voice rasped from outside. "It sounds important. May I come in?" Elena recognized the voice immediately, an old traveler who had recently come to the village. He had been quiet, a man of few words, but something about his presence had unsettled her. She hadn't expected to see him again, especially not at her doorstep. Finn glanced at Elena, his expression questioning, but she nodded and moved to open the door. The traveler stood there, his cloak heavy with dust, his face lined with age and hardship. His eyes, though, were sharp and alert. "I need to speak with you," he said, his voice a whisper of urgency. "It concerns your loom." Elena's breath caught in her throat. How could he know about the loom? "Come in," she said, stepping aside to let him enter. Finn remained by the fire, watching the traveler carefully. Once inside, the traveler wasted no time. "You've seen the dark threads, haven't you?" Elena nodded, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. "They are the work of the dark weaver," the traveler continued. "He has been searching for this loom for years, and now that he's found it, he will stop at nothing to take control." "The dark weaver?" Finn asked, his hand instinctively moving to the small dagger he carried at his belt. The traveler nodded. "He is a sorcerer, a master of manipulating fate. He weaves destinies of chaos and destruction, turning people's lives into nightmares. If he gains control of this loom, he will reshape the world into a realm of darkness." Elena felt a wave of cold fear wash over her. She had always known the loom was powerful, but she had never imagined it could be the key to something so terrible. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The traveler's gaze fixed on her, and in his eyes she saw the weight of countless battles, of lives lost to the dark weaver's scheme. "You must protect the loom," he said, "no matter the cost." The village was quiet that night, but Elena couldn't sleep. The traveler's warning echoed in her mind, the weight of responsibility settling heavily on her shoulder. She had always been a weaver, a simple woman with a gift passed down through her family, but now it seemed that gift had become a curse. The black threads in her tapestries were a sign, a message from the dark weaver. He was coming for her loom, and he would not stop until he had it. Alina sat by the fire, her hands resting in her lap. Finn had stayed late, offering to guard her home, but she had sent him away, telling him there was nothing to worry about. It wasn't true, of course, but she couldn't bear the thought of dragging him into this danger. The loom stood silent in the corner, its threads shimmering in the firelight. She stared at it, wondering how something so beautiful could hold such terrible power. Suddenly, the flames in the hearth flickered, casting strange shadows across the room. Alina's heart raced as the temperature dropped, a cold wind seeping through the cracks in the wall. The shadows lengthened, twisting and writhing as they crept closer to the loom. Alina, a voice whispered, low and menacing. She jumped to her feet, her eyes darting around the room, but there was no one there, only the shadows, moving of their own accord. Alina, the voice came again, this time from the direction of the loom. Her hands clenched into fists as she backed away from it, fear clawing at her insides. She had to stop this. She had to fight back. But the shadows coiled around the loom, dark tendrils reaching out as if to grasp it. Alina could feel their malevolent intent, the hunger for control that radiated from them. Her mind raced. The traveler had warned her, but he hadn't told her how to stop the Dark Weaver. Alina's mind raced. The traveler had warned her, but he hadn't told her how to stop the Dark Weaver. Desperation clawed at her as the shadows tightened their grip around the loom. She could feel the cold seep into her bones, the darkness, threatening to snuff out the light she had always tried to weave into her tapestry. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she forced herself to stay calm. She needed to think, to find a way to protect the loom. Suddenly, a soft glow emanated from the corner of the room. Alina turned her head, and there stood her grandmother, Agatha, her presence warm and reassuring despite her age. Agatha had passed away years ago, but in this moment of dire need, her spirit seemed to return, a beacon of hope. Alina, Agatha whispered, her voice gentle yet commanding, "You must trust in the loom's true power. It is not meant to control fate, but to guide it with wisdom and compassion." Alina felt a surge of determination. "Grandmother, how do I stop the Dark Weaver?" Agatha's spirit reached out, her hand hovering over Alina's heart. "Remember the balance. For every thread you weave, ensure it harmonizes with the lives it touches. Use your heart, not fear, to guide your hand." Taking a deep breath, Alina closed her eyes and focused on the loom. She envisioned the threads as more than mere strands of yarn. She saw them as the lives of her neighbors, her friends, and her family. Each one was unique, deserving of their own destiny. She began to weave, her movements steady and purposeful, infusing each thread with intention and care. As she worked, the dark threads began to lose their sinister hue, blending seamlessly with the vibrant color. The shadows recoiled, their grasp weakening as Alina's determination strengthened. She could feel the loom responding to her, the ancient artifact recognizing her resolve. But the Dark Weaver was not easily deterred. The room darkened further, and his presence loomed larger, a menacing figure cloaked in shadow. "You cannot resist me, Elena," he hissed, his voice echoing through the room. "The loom belongs to me." Alina stood her ground, refusing to back down. "The loom belongs to the people. It is a tool for good, not for your twisted desire." The Dark Weaver lunged forward, his hands outstretched to seize the loom. Alina felt a surge of fear but pushed it aside, focusing instead on the power within her. She drew strength from the love she held for her community, the bonds that tied them all together. With a final determined motion, she wove a masterful pattern, intertwining light and shadow, hope and despair, in perfect harmony. The loom glowed with a brilliant light, and the Dark Weaver found himself ensnared in the very threads he had sought to control. His form began to unravel, his power dissipating as Elena's tapestry solidified. The room brightened, the shadows retreating as peace was restored. Alina collapsed onto the floor, exhausted, but victorious. The loom stood silent once more, its threads now vibrant and balanced. Finn burst into the room, his face etched with concern. "Alina, are you all right?" She looked up, managing a weary smile. "I did it. Finn, the Dark Weaver, is gone." Lila entered shortly after, her eyes wide with relief. "You saved us all, Alina. I knew you could." Elena leaned back, the weight of her responsibility settling comfortably on her shoulder. We did it together. I couldn't have done it without both of you. As the days passed, the village began to heal from the turmoil. The dark threads that had once plagued Elena Sania tapestries were now a thing of the past, replaced by the vibrant colors that reflected the lives of the villagers. Elena continued to weave, her bond with the loom stronger than ever, guided by the wisdom her grandmother had imparted. One evening as the sun set over the rolling hills, Elena sat by her loom, Finn and Lila by her side. They had become inseparable allies, united by their shared struggle and the deep friendships that had formed in the face of adversity. Elena, Finn began, his voice thoughtful. What will you do now? The loom is safe, but the world is still a complex place. Elena smiled, her fingers gently touching the threads. The loom will always be here, and so will I. Ivy learned that with great power comes great responsibility. I'll continue to weave, ensuring that fate remains balanced and that no dark force can ever take control again. Lila nodded in agreement, and we'll be here to help whenever you need us. As the trio watched the sky turn from gold to twilight, Elena felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced her fears, protected her loved ones, and embraced her destiny as the guardian of the loom. The tapestry of her life was richer and more vibrant than ever, woven with threads of courage, friendship, and hope. And so in the quiet village surrounded by rolling hills and thick forests, life returned to its serene rhythm. Elena's loom continued to weave its magic, a silent sentinel, ensuring that fate remained a tapestry of possibility and promise. The dark weaver was no more, his shadows banished by the light of Elena's unwavering spirit. As the seasons changed and the village thrived, stories of the brave weaver who protected destiny spread far and wide, inspiring others to believe in the power of one person's courage to change the world. Elena's legacy was not just in the beautiful tapestries she created, but in the lives she touched and the balance she maintained. Years later, Elena stood before her loom, now adorned with intricate patterns that told the story of her journey. Finn and Lila had become pillars of the community, their own talents and strengths complementing Elena's weaving. Together, they formed a bond that was unbreakable, a testament to the resilience and unity that had saved their world. As she began to weave a new tapestry, Elena felt a familiar warmth envelop her, a gentle reminder of her grandmother's spirit. She smiled, knowing that the loom's true power lay not just in its ability to shape fate, but in the hearts of those who wielded it with wisdom and love. And so the loom continued to weave thread by thread, destiny by destiny, guided by the hands of a weaver who understood that true power comes from harmony, compassion, and the courage to protect what is good and just. Elena's story was one of triumph, a beacon of hope in a world where fate could be shaped by those who dared to stand against the darkness. As the final threads were woven into the tapestry, Elena looked out over the village, now bustling with life and joy. She knew that challenges would come and go, but with Finn and Lila by her side, she was ready to face whatever the future held. The loom had taught her that destiny was not a predetermined path, but a canvas upon which each person could leave their mark. With a contented sigh, Elena leaned back, admiring her work. The tapestry before her was a masterpiece, a reflection of the lives she had touched and the battles she had fought. It was a symbol of balance, a testament to the power of one person's will to shape a better world. And as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Elena felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She was the weaver of fate, but more importantly, she was a guardian of hope, a protector of lives, and a beacon of light in the tapestry of the world.